if you were in attendance yesterday, or if you had a chance to look through that webinar and view it, you'll notice that it was talking a lot about the various roles that data can play and the various tools especially that can be used in your organizations to do many things and to do with how we use and need to present data and information. And so today we want to talk about can or how techies and CSOs work together. And so what I would like to do is give a high-level overview. Naturally, an hour and a half is not a long time to be able to transfer everything we'd like to talk about. In fact, we could be here for a week. And so what I've attempted to do is put together a narrative which speaks to the various issues that CSOs might come across or might find useful in engaging with technologists, and then to just throw in a lot of information and extra links and resources that you can click through to, and I hope that you find this useful. So we're going to be talking about the types of techies, about websites in general, about digital agencies and social media, about data and civic technology, and then a lot about what we can do by ourselves. One of the main questions we had yesterday, one of the questions we had yesterday at least, was how much do we think we should upskill within our organizations with regards to data and technology, and it's something that I wanted to focus on today. Naturally, there will always be things that experts need to be able to do, but the range of tools and programs and resources that are available to us as CSOs these days are more than ever before. There are many free and easy to use tools which can really assist us in carrying out our mission and impact through online and through technology, which is really a critical part of modern day life. And so I'd like to just leave you with some of these things that can be used. The three types of technologists I want to talk about, or where I think that technology can play an important role in the impact and mission and objectives of CSOs, is firstly in web development. And so the first type of technologist you might come in contact with, you might employ, you might ask to do a project for you, is a web developer who will build and maintain a website for you. The second type of person or company or organization you might come across is called a digital agency. Especially, I'm based in Durban, as is probably very obvious. Something that is very prominent in Durban right now in the technology industry is digital agencies. And these are firms or people who will handle your online marketing and engagement for you, which includes things like online marketing campaigns, Facebook, Twitter, and this kind of thing. And it's a distinctly different role to someone who might build a website for you, although, and please understand that there may be a lot of overlap between many of the different things we talk about, and in some cases organizations are able to do both for you, or they do definitely overlap. The final one I'm going to speak about, but in quite a quick way or high level, is the data scientist or the civic technologist. Now, a data scientist or a civic technologist will build data for you, a data tool for you, or help you with reporting or systems, like storing your client data, like what to do with the survey that you've run, like how to access research or data or statistics about your area of impact. And I'm going to bring up the seminal example of VoisyMap again, as I did yesterday and as I will do tomorrow. When we click on it, VoisyMap is what's called a data tool. It's an amazing example of civic technology because it takes the census 2011 that was conducted by Stats South Africa, Statistics South Africa, which is an open data set and is one of the most foundational data sets about us as a country. And it takes it from being something that is fairly difficult to understand and use. When we get down and into the data from the Stats SA side, it takes quite a bit to know what you're doing there, and it brings it into a usable data tool, as we call it, which is delivered over websites, but that is not necessarily the case with all data tools. So this is delivered over a website called WasiMap and lets us engage with data about ourselves. And so when we click into KwaZulu-Natal, or we click into eThekwini, or if we even click into a ward within eThekwini, it gives us the context of data from the census, including population, election results, demographics, households, and all of these statistics are able to be fairly or easier understood. They're able to be interrogated. The data behind them is able to be downloaded. We're able to embed them in a website that we might want to build, we might want to send to our web developer to put into our website, and we're able to share them on social media. This tool was built by our partners, Code for South Africa, who are pioneering the civic technology movement in South Africa, and I would encourage you to check them out. So that's about all I want to talk about in terms of the civic technology, because we've got a strong focus on it both yesterday and tomorrow. And so let's go on to talking about websites. Sorry, the first thing we're going to talk about is why we would even bother. So why do you want to go to the quiet, shy person sitting behind his computer in the corner? Well, there are some critical things we can do as CSOs to expand our reach, to maximize our impact, to build our communities. These days, most people in South Africa have access to a cellular telephone and the smartphone penetration, so the number of people with smartphones that can access the internet is exceptionally high given our socioeconomic status. Furthermore, we have a fairly okay broadband web coverage, so people have access to the internet. And so naturally, using technology, this can be a tool for change. And really, what I wanted to iterate yesterday, and I want to reiterate today, is that if we think of the analogy of a pipe and water, the water is really the impact you're having. It's the core work you're carrying out, and it's nothing about technology that makes that real. What technology is the pipe, and so it's just a mechanism of delivery of our impact, and that's why it's really important for us to get to understand, because as a pipe, it's more effective, it's longer, it's bigger, and it can get further than most other forms of transfer of our mission. So technologists can do a couple of things for us. They can build us websites, which let people know what we're doing and where we are. They can help us build donation systems. So I don't know if you're aware of online donation systems, but for example, one that springs to mind is Charity Water. When you go straight to their website, if the internet behaves, it will take you straight to the ability to pay them money to carry out their mission by your credit card or by PayPal. So a technologist could build that for us. They can build volunteer systems, so ability to attract resources and skills and people. They can help us build inventory systems or e-learning platforms. And so an e-learning platform is literally just taking a video of someone teaching something and being able to put it online so that other people have access to it. And so this could be anything from teaching people to carry out different healthcare methods, different early childhood development practices, or anything like that. They can assist us with paperless workflows, and a lot of what we went into yesterday was engaging with the free Google suite of apps, which allows us to take our reports and analysis on spreadsheets and collection of client information and surveying off paper onto a place where it's able to be shared and collaborated with, so we can work together as a team even if we're in different locations. And it also gives us more security in terms of being able to store our information in a place where it might not get damaged if we lose our laptop or it gets stolen or something happens to it. Finally, a very significant use of technology within CSOs is community building and engagement tools. And in my experience, and to just give a little bit of background, I've come out of the commercial world of being an economist into learning technology and data science, and then into starting an MPO. And one of the most interesting things I've found with starting an MPO is the ability that technology gives us to connect to people fast, to build a community over social media, to access people over technology like meetup.com, which allows people to find out where we are and to come to our events. And also the ability to use technology for engagement. Every time we run an event, we're able to send out a Google survey to ask people, did you like that? Was it appropriate? How can we improve? And we can really just start to, we can do this on Twitter, we can engage with people and let people know what we're doing, and we can do it on Facebook and on Google Plus and on, if anyone uses that. So those are really the critical reasons why we would be interested in talking to that shy guy in the corner or shy girl in the corner behind their laptop. So the first thing, and please, I know that even in this webinar I'm going to say things which make no sense, because anytime someone works in a technical industry, they seem to love terminology that makes no sense to anybody else. So whether it's acronyms or abbreviations or anything like that, we just find that often that we can't even talk to each other because we don't know what the words that we're saying. And so I just put in about 3 pages of terminology. I'll just run through them very quickly, just so that at least for this webinar you have some idea of what I'm talking about. If I say something you don't know, please just flag it or ask a question. I would really like anyone who's interested in asking questions to be able to ask it any time, so please let me know. So just in terms of some of the terminology, a website is just a location that's connected to the internet that maintains one or more web pages. So I think we understand what a website is. A website is made up of web pages, which documents, is basically a document online. So that document can have words on it, it can have forms on it, it can have pictures and media. Web development is building a website. So when you work with a web development company or web developer, they're building a website for you. The content on a website is just the words and pictures and videos on the website page, and it's often called content. And when we're talking about a group of text or a paragraph or a sentence, that's often called copy. A CMS is a content management system. So WordPress is an example of a web framework or web technology or web stuff that you can edit your own content, and so it's called a content management system or CMS. A domain name is the website address, so www.example.com or whatever. Programming, so when people are doing coding, there is programming language is the code that tells in a website or web frame. This is the code that tells your website what to do. So when I click on a button, the code tells the website what to do once I've clicked. So I click on this button, go to this area, or play this video. When I say framework, a framework, just like any framework, is just all of the parts that need to be in place for a website to work. A web host. So a web host and hosting, and I'll go through a quick diagram just now. But when you're building a website is a collection of files and documents that get shown on the web, and so those files need to sit somewhere. And the web host is the computer where your website's files sit. They could be on your own, but often these days websites are hosted what's in the cloud, and really in the cloud just means that somewhere in Norway or in the United States or somewhere else exotic in the world, there is a computer sitting with a hard drive that has your website's files on it and speaks to your website and tells it what to do. So one of the critical things that we need to know about in websites these days is if they are responsive. And so responsive means that your site will change or respond to the size that it has to show itself at. And so why this is critical is because so many people nowadays access the internet through their mobile phones or their cell phones. And so we need to build websites that are firstly thinking about what it looks like on a phone and then what it looks like as it gets bigger. And so if you take and we can even probably do it here. If I take this website and I narrow it down, you can see that it's just kind of responding to what it might look like on a cell phone, but that's not very great. And so if you're building a responsive website, it just means that it's rendering or showing well on a mobile phone. So another very important term these days in websites is SEO, which is called which means search engine optimization. And what this really means is that Google has Google search or any other search engine. So when we go onto the internet and we type in a search on the Google bar, it has a bunch of things it does to find out which is the most appropriate thing it should return for your search. So if you search for cat videos, it will look and say, well, what is the most appropriate sites that have cat videos that fit this person? Now, what you can do on your websites is you can, with your developer or whoever you're working on your website with, you can do certain things that make your website more likely to come up earlier in the Google search. And what's being found is it's very important to be on the first page, for example, of a Google search. Then the percentage of people that go to the second page of a Google search is very low. So your web browser is just the program you use to access the internet, like Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge nowadays, Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, or Safari. I'm on Apple. When we talk about digital marketing or online marketing, it just means reaching your market through the internet, and this is often done with digital agencies using Facebook and Twitter and websites. When we talk about a theme on a website, it's a pre-made skin or design template for your website, and so it talks to so someone has gone and they've designed a website that's generic, that looks in a certain way, and you're able to take that and apply it to your own website, often on a content management system like WordPress. And then a plugin, which is also more related to WordPress than any other type of website, is something that you can do when you want to add something to your website to give it extra functions. And so this could be anything from putting on a poll onto your site. So you want to poll or survey people, and you want to say, was A better than B? Click yes or no, or whatever, and there could be a plugin which does that. But I've put a little link there for every web acronym you ever wanted to know. And so if you want to really, I mean, it has lots. So if you ever come across other things you don't know, that's a good place to look. Just a word on browsers. So Internet Explorer is the one that comes prepackaged with most Windows computers. It's now being phased out, but it's really not a good browser. And so this is just my own opinion talking here. But if you are interested in having a better experience on the internet, I would recommend getting Chrome or Firefox or something else. Just in terms of just going over like the framework of how a website works. And so you can see on the left there, you might be sitting as a user with a computer or a smartphone. You access the internet through those things. And then there's that server computer or that hosting your site that I was talking about earlier. And on that side on the right, there is a hard drive somewhere sitting with all of your pictures and your text and your videos and the way that your website looks and the code that drives it. And when I, as a user, go onto your website and I type in www.example.com or whatever it is, my computer, through my internet browser, sends a request to, or just asks, hey, can you bring this website up on my computer? That goes through to the server or where your website's hosted, and it comes back and it shows me your website. So the basic parts of websites, or what websites have, are content, and so that's everything that you see on the site. The content is sitting somewhere on a computer being hosted, as I mentioned, and the database is where all those files are sitting on that server or that hosted computer. And then, so the content is provided to the website by the database, and then there's the technical architecture, and this is the stuff that tells your website how to run on the internet and when to show a video and how to do it. And so this is what you would most likely get a techie to help you out with if he was or she was building a website for you. The first thing, so when we go into making or deciding about whether we want to make a website or not, I mean, the first thing I think that's really important is, do you need a website? And there's a bunch of things you can ask, but essentially you can do a lot through Facebook and social media and a bunch of other tools if you're at a certain level of capacity. If you have the ability to build a website or you have the ability to pay someone to build a website, then it is very good to have a website. But we need to understand that a website is an ongoing thing. It's something that is always going to need resources, and it's something that's going to need updating. And so quite often we see a lot of bad or ineffectual websites being put up, I mean, by any sector of society, not by CSOs necessarily, because there's not an understanding that a website needs to be something that has a purpose. So why have I got a website? Is it going to be updated? If you've got a blog, are you able to commit to posting content on that blog or writing to your users frequently enough to interest them to keep coming back? And so it's always important to sit down and realize that it's probably better to use the tools that are very effective, like Facebook, than to have a bad website. And I can talk a lot more about that if need be, and you'll have all my details if you want to ask some questions. So there's two parts of making a website. The first is building it. And so this is when you will go yourself or you'll go to a techie and you'll say, hey, can we build a website? And so this is the development phase. And this will generally be a once-up cost or a once-off cost. It will be when they really say, okay, what is the purpose? How do we want it to look? What do you want on your site in terms of text or copy, in terms of pictures, in terms of sections? Do we want a blog section? Do we want obviously we need a front page. Are we going to put a map of where we are, allow people to contact us? Do we want a contact form? Are we going to post about our events? Are we going to publish event invitations on our website? So it's all of these kind of things that you will sit down and you'll either talk to your techie about or talk to the firm you're asking to help you, or you'll do yourself. And just understanding that there is a lot of scope with this, and something I'm going to include with the follow-up blog as these webinars are posted is just a bunch of the different sort of things that a website can have. But what you will typically hear, and it's one of the terms I didn't actually put on, but is they might ask you to do a wireframe. Now, a wireframe is literally just a drawing of what the website looks like. It can be done on a piece of paper, and it really is simply just you drawing a computer screen and then saying, this is how I want everything to go. And that gives the developer or the person who's building the website an indication of what you want it to look like, and it also gives them an indication of what sort of things or functions you want on your website. So building a website is not really something that's very easily defined in terms of time and cost. There is ability to make this a WordPress website, and if we have time at the end, I'll show you how a WordPress.com website can take 5 or 2 minutes to get up and running. The more and more complex a website gets, and the more and more custom functions you want on a website, the longer it will take. And there might be some relation between time and cost. And so if you are able to pay more, you might be able to get it done faster, which isn't ideal, but that's often how it works. The one thing, so there's two things, and we're going to do some live editing because I was showing you how Google Drive worked yesterday. So we'll just put down the wireframing part that I just spoke about. But also, what I wanted to say is just build for mobile. So that was all about what we were talking about earlier. Almost everyone will be accessing your website at least at some point from their phone. it's easy to build small and go bigger. It's much harder to build big and go smaller. And so if you're doing it yourself or you're working with someone who's helping you out and might not be a completely full stack, as they're called, web developers, then you need to make sure that you're aware that the wireframing will help, that building for mobile will help. And then it's also that it's just very okay to be annoying and go back and make sure it's exactly how you want it. This is something that is going to be very core to your mission, and this is something that is going to be your presence when you're not there online. This is going to be how people understand your organization. And so it is very okay to be as annoying as you need to be to make sure it's done how you need it. And your relationship with your person building a website, whether it's yourself or whether it's someone who's helping you or whether it's someone you're paying to do it, should be a lot of communication, and there should be very iterative prototyping. Now, what that means is that you should have an example of a site up very quickly, and then you should be talking about how you can change that. So your first prototype or your first example of the site is your wireframe, which you may have drawn on a serviette in a restaurant. And then from there, it should be built fast, and there should be this iterative process of them coming back to you. You're saying, I like this, I don't like this, I like this color, and then them going and doing those changes. And so it shouldn't be that you ask a developer or a techie for something, they go away, and 6 months later they drop something over to you, and now you have to be happy with it. The other side is that once a website is live, so how we would describe it is that once their website was launched or people are able to access it, it's called live, then someone has to maintain and fix and update this website. And so that is what you might pay someone to do. This is what you might pay in your time to do yourself. And so what is needed once you have a website up and running is it needs to be hosted, so it needs to be sitting somewhere where it can access its files, as we remember from the diagram earlier. And then often either you or your web company will be paying a firm like Headsnow or AfriHost to store your website's files and also to register your domain. And so remember, we said the domain is the www.example.com. It's whatever your website's address is. And you can really think about it as like a street address for your website. Also, naturally, on top of your website being able to access its files and being hosted as we described it, it needs to be maintained and fixed. Sometimes a link might be broken or something might not be working. And so someone is going to be able to have to do that. And then it certainly needs to be updated. And so the content on the website, so the information about your events that you run and your reports and your videos, these things need to be able to be done in a quick and easy way. And that's often why, as we'll go through a bit later, it's useful to use a website or something that has a content management system like WordPress. So if you're getting someone to do this for you, there will often be a monthly charge. To host a website, a sort of simple one-page website can be, and really I don't like to mention costs because it can be anything, but it can take 500, 1,000, 1,500 rand to host, and then there could be people's time needed to maintain and update your website. When you're going into making a website, there's 3 critical paths you can go down at the moment. So the first thing is you can create a blog with a content management system such as WordPress.com or Google Sites. And that would be what a lot of people may have already had experience with, wherever your site is, it's called example.wordpress.com, or if you're a Google or Gmail user, you could do it on Google Sites. And this is where you're completely able to build a website yourself, although there are some limitations, and obviously because these technology has been created for anyone to do, there's quite a lot of generic items in the design and what you're able to do with your website. The second option should not say blog, it should say website. So it should say website with a content management system. And this is something like WordPress.org, or this is where someone builds a website for you, but you still have the power to update your own content. So you're able to write a blog post, you're able to post a video, you're able to update an event detail, and you don't need a techie to do that for you, even though they may have built the core of the site. Then the final thing is building a website from scratch, which means that you will almost always need a techie to do everything for you. And so if you're going to go for a site that doesn't have a content management system or doesn't have some way of you being able to affect your own content, then you have to realize that you will always be reliant on the person that built it for you or someone who's able to, a techie or a technologist, to be able to build the site. So that was just some of the things about making a website, and I will go into a little bit more detail towards the end. I wanted to move on to our second type of techie, which is a digital agency. So now a digital agency would often be a firm, as we said, that will help you with online marketing, with social media. So they will create posts or content for you. They might help you with search engine optimization. They may even go through a branding process with you, even if it's just understanding your brand. And so there is a bunch of different ideas here. The first thing is online marketing, and so this is how do we make sure that other people, and I know it's called marketing, but it's really marketing is just being able to reach users or reach the people that you're trying to have an impact with. And digital agencies will be able to tell you how to use things like Google AdWords or to do adverts online, or how to make sure that your presence is known to other people in an online environment. They will also handle your social media for you if you want them to, or they can give you advice. And there's everything from them coming in on a once-off perspective to just look at what you're doing and giving you some strategy for your social media, to actually creating posts and content for you, where they write the post on your Facebook and they post pictures for you. And then an example of a firm that uses a digital agency to handle their Facebook page, and that can, and again, costs are really just not worth mentioning because they can be anything, so please don't take this as a standard, but for what that level of engagement is needed, that firm pays 3,000 Rand a month for this agency to handle their Facebook. Now that is with quite intensive posting and a lot of understanding the analytics behind the visiting of the page and the engagement on social media. And so I said a bunch of words there that I think need to be explained. Any website that you build or any social media that you run, like Facebook, has the ability to report analytics. Now, analytics are just the analysis of use of your site, which means you can see how many people looked at a post, how many people liked something, how many people disliked or stopped liking your page, how many people visited your page, where were they visiting from. So if you have Google Analytics on your site, you can see actually the location and time of where people were visiting your site from. So I can tell that, you know, last night someone from the Ukraine accessed my site. And so why this is interesting is because it helps us to understand how people are engaging with us online, and really to understand that this extends, and as I was talking about earlier, to our presence online, our bouquet of websites and social media and anything else we're doing online is the track record of who we are. It's a personality for our organization, and it's a brand. And so we really are interested, or we should be interested, in what we look like as a person online. You know, what are our online clothes like? Are we coming across as neat? Are we coming across as true to who we are and what our message is? And so the other thing that a digital agency could do for you is obviously the search engine optimization that we spoke about earlier. So when engaging with a digital agency, the type of engagement will depend on your need. So is it a once-off need? So do you need a campaign for an event or designing a brand identity? So are you running a campaign or an event, and can they help you with what it looks like, how and when and who to post on which social media, and how to engage with people online? Or is it going to be an ongoing need, like the example where the company uses a firm to do their Facebook posts and content every week? And so that's really building a relationship with someone now. And to also say that a techie, and this type of techie, this is someone you could employ, and I think a lot of us do in our organizations, have people that are caring about our presence, our brand, our social media. And so it's really important to understand there's so much potential with this area of online marketing and social media. And I know that in your previous digital engagements, webinars, which are posted on the Oxfam site, there's really goes into depth in these. And so it's really great that you have that as a resource. And I would encourage you to go back and to really engage with that if you haven't yet, and use that as a resource. But also at the end of this presentation, I've dropped a bunch of links that can help you with understanding the world of social media and digital marketing. So there's some key principles I wanted to go into with this idea about design and brand, and just what we were talking about, that when we're engaging with techies in terms of creating our online presence for us, what we're really asking them to do is to build the awareness about who we are and what we do, and to build a level of trust. And so trust is a really interesting issue when it comes to being online, because is the image that you're portraying and the things that you're saying and the pictures that you're posting and everything that your activity that you're doing on the internet, is that true to your mission and your message and your voice? And if it is, you actually build up a sense of trust. How do I know when I go to charity water, as if I donate 100 Rand, that it's going to go to providing someone with water, if that charity is based in somewhere that I can't access or can't meet? And it's really only through my understanding of their brand, my understanding of what their message is on the internet, what other people are saying about them on their social media, and all of this builds up a trust that I can support this, or I might want to volunteer my time, or I might want to advocate for them. And so this is why this is such a critical area. And so the design and brand of your organization is really critical when you're talking about websites and you're talking about digital marketing. And design is an interesting concept because it's something that we often don't pay enough attention to. And one of the parts of this world that isn't necessarily called a techie, but is so critical, is your web designer, or the person who's doing the design. So in other words, who creates a logo for you or creates the actual drawing, does the actual drawing online of the poster that you want to do for your event. And there's a lot of interesting things about building trust and awareness and connection to your organization's mission and message that fit into what you look, how you come across. Humans are visual. We're interested in using our senses to understanding things, and so all of this will feed, all of the idea of building up a sense of awareness and trust about you will go to your logo, and you will be driven by what your logo, your branding is, your website and the portfolio of things you do, your social media, and this is both in terms of the kind of content you're providing and then your voice. Like, so something that's very interesting when you sit down with a digital agency will be that they will start to talk about what is the voice, what is the message of this organization, and they want to make sure that when you post on Facebook, when you write a tweet, it's reflective of the voice and who you are. Am I being true? Are we an organization that is good for justice? Are we trying to advocate for something? Are we trying to come across as insightful or as organization with integrity? And do what we're saying online, does that represent who we are? So I've even put in some links about what are the colors in a logo mean, and there's some interesting things there when you start to look at the psychology behind branding and logo color. Not that there are certainly things that can get too much attention, but it's worth being aware about them. And what you can do with the digital agency or as yourself is build what's called a brand Bible. And so I think this is quite interesting in terms of being able to give someone who's even building your website an idea of what you are and what you want them to do. And so the link that I clicked on here takes me through what a brand bubble is, and essentially it is just a way of letting anyone understand how they're able to use your brand. What is the logo specifications? What are the fonts and typography, the colors? You can see as I scroll down here, how do we want our images to be handled? What do we want our text and tone? And so either engaging a digital agency to build the brand bubble for you or doing it yourself is a very useful tool to then be able to go to your website developer or to a digital agency to say, well, this is who we are as an organization. This is what we should look like online. This is what our website should do and how it should be designed for. So I think that's really interesting stuff, and it's something I've certainly found very useful as I've built my own CSO. So now we start to talk about one of the questions which was asked yesterday, which is how much can we do ourselves and how much is it worth outsourcing? And my feeling, and this speaks more to my personality and maybe my background, but my feeling is there is a lot that we can be doing ourselves. And there are a lot of those iterations or those prototypes or those trying outs that we can be doing. Building a website is not something that lives only in the world of the techie anymore. And so I think that being able to build your own website with, as you say up there, with a CMS is a great first step if this is something you're interested in. And if it's something you can do, it also gives you it empowers you a lot more to understand what you need, where the gaps are that a techie can fill in, rather than just from the start saying we need a website and sort of dropping it over the fence in a way, and not understanding the process behind building a website, behind creating a data tool, behind building up a campaign or a brand. So I've put a bunch of links here just to go through them quickly. These are all tools that you can use to build a site from beginning to end without necessarily needing to have a techie around, or at least something that you can ask your techie friend or a techie you find in the street how to do stuff, but you would generally be able to do a lot of it with a little bit of guidance, and there is a lot of great help for these tools. WordPress.com is very interesting, is the most significant one, and WordPress is responsible for powering more than a quarter of the whole internet, of all the websites on the internet. And so it's really a foundational piece of technology. There's a difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org. If you're looking to build a blog by yourself, sort of a plug and play or from beginning to end by yourself, WordPress.com is what you're interested in. A similar one, so that is a blog with a content management system, as we mentioned earlier. Similar one is Drupal. Tumblr is also is an option for blogging and posts, often more heavy around media. I can show you what a Tumblr website looks like. This is just something that is, again, being put up by someone just clicking through, and as I said, I'll show you at the end what that looks like. And this is a blog called I Quant New York, which is just about data stories in New York City. And this person is able to do all of this without writing any code or needing to be necessarily very technical. And you can learn this as well very easily, or at least easily enough. If you're someone who uses Google Apps or Gmail, you can build a Google site. So I can show you an example of a Google site I built very quickly. I think I built this in about 3 minutes. And when I say built, it's really just a series of clicking, no needing to do much. And this was for training journalists to use data. And I built this, what you can see here, called Tableau, is just another tool that one can use to post data and build a data tool. And I just put it into a Google site. And you can see this just is telling about land grabbing in Africa. It's a little story. But significantly, this was just built by clicking through and following examples without writing any code or anything like that. And then there's Wix, which is Another is an even higher level, or easier in a way, tool to build websites, and that it really just helps you build a website like you would edit a document or a presentation. I can show you that just now. But if we do run out of time, just please know that anywhere where there's this little red lettering with an underline, it links you through to these all, and so you can go through and you can check them out. And if you need any help with this, you can either ask a friend or someone you know, or please just get hold of me and I will help you with pleasure. The other things that we could be able to do ourselves, and yesterday what we spoke a lot about was Googling, and something in organization is that I am naturally an introverted person that doesn't like social media much, and so I feel a bit resentful that I had to use Facebook and Twitter and have to use it so much, but it definitely has a massive impact, and so I'm learning to be okay with it. But as I started to build this organization, I just Googled a lot about how to use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social media for an organization. And there's some critical lessons to be learned there. Just understanding that, you know, when you're running a page, you could give the power for other people to administrate and post stuff with you, how things look when you post them, how to, even on things on platforms like Facebook, you're able to pay a bit of money to get them to get a post or an event or something targeted to a certain group of people. For open data Durban events, we often just focus on the the location of Durban, and we can tag people that are interested in a whole bunch of different interests that they've stated on Facebook, which means that when we have an event, it's more likely to pop up into the news feed as someone who's more likely to come to an event, and that's quite a useful tool. But that all can be done really with these online tutorials and videos. And so I've put two examples, and you can see the here or here. Those will click through to full social media courses and digital marketing courses if you'd like. And then on the next slide, I've included a number of resources. And then, so if you want to go back to our first webinar or the webinar tomorrow, there'll be a lot about how to use data and some other technology, especially using the Google Apps Suite or Infogram or Excel to do our own data management. So reporting, research, monitoring and evaluation, having client records stored well and being able to analyze them and to be able to report back to our community or report back to our donors, to be able to carry out research. And so there's a lot of tools and ideas that were in, and especially yesterday's webinar, and that will be posted onto the blog. And now I'm saying that these things are all possible to learn, and it would be unfortunate if I hadn't given you some indication of how you might be able to learn these. But one of the most significant things I think that's happened in technology, and which means that we don't have to rely so much on technologists or techies, or we can kind of become them ourselves, is the massive increase in ability to access online resources. And so I don't know if you've heard about MOOCs. You can see the word there. It's massive open online courses. But there are a number of organizations that are either providing free or paid for services to teach you to do something in an online environment. So for example, the first one we look at is something called Treehouse. And Treehouse is just full of stories of people that have used it to teach themselves to build a website. And it looks like this. You can see this is my Treehouse environment. I pulled up a bunch of WordPress for this talk today. And so if we go into what the resources that Treehouse, for example, Treehouse is a paid service, but there are free services I've also put on there. You can see all of the different courses that exist. So this is an example of learning or teaching ourselves online, even if it is just to be able to have more input into the process of building our own websites. This will teach you things like how to manage users in WordPress, WordPress basics. So this is just a search for WordPress in the Treehouse environment. And if you want to see an example of this, now because of the webinar, you're not going to be able to hear this, but this just shows how the learning happens. And so it's generally someone talking to you, and it goes through, you can see the video happening. They provide resources, they provide the ability to work through, they give downloads and transcripts, so you can really work through piece by piece, not to be punting Treehouse too much. There's so many others. There's Code Academy if you're interested in learning to program, to make a website. I've included a link there to 10 free online courses in social media, all of which look pretty decent and can teach you some, give you some insight. To places that have online courses like Khan Academy or Coursera, and if you click through to Coursera, you will see courses posted from institutes and universities from around the world on topics that range from any sort of subject that you can study either in business school or learning to code or learning to make a website or from a university. And then there's also Google. So I think something that's really critical here, and we spoke about it, and I'll keep saying it again and again and again, it's that typing a dumb question into Google is what I think I can probably attribute most of my career to. So learning how to do something by typing a dumb question into what I would call a dumb or embarrassing question into Google, like how do I make this do this, and just going down that rabbit hole and teaching myself. I think that's such a great skill to have. So, I mean, something that we wanted to talk about was challenges in dealing with techies, and I think that, you know, a lot of it comes down to just understanding perspectives and being able to, that, you know, a techie is often very incapable of understanding your perspective. Technologists and techies, their first and only thought is usually the solution. Now, what we're starting to understand in ideas about, well, certainly I think we and people that listen to this understand far more than I do, but that a flashy app or a flashy website is really great, but absolutely useless unless it addresses a problem and it has someone it can relate to, a user. And so I think one of the dangers with technologists and techies is that they get very excited about solutions. And they don't often focus on problems, and so they want to build a flashy app, but they're not really always that interested or understanding about who's having to use the app, about how they use it, how they might access it. So, you know, for example, developing a smartphone app for people that don't have access to the internet. And so I think it's really important to frame a discussion, especially when you're talking about even building a website, building a brand, carrying out a project, but from really trying to get them to empathize with the problem and the user, to be very defined about what the problem is that this technology is trying to solve, and then who is the person with this problem, and what does their day-to-day life look like, and what is their access to technology, and what is their level of income, and what is their, and I think if you can start to do that, you can start to really get a sense of, or you can give the technologist a sense of what his constraints and his boundaries are. I think that this speaks to actually the second point on that slide. They need a clear project narrative. So what you need to be able to answer for them is what, why, how, when, and who are we doing this for. And I think it's really important often that you'll meet with someone to build a website or carry out a technology project, write everything down, draw out a wireframe or draw out what you want your site to look like, get them to comment on it. Make sure you go away with an understanding that you're speaking the same language. Techies don't really speak the same language as anyone else. And I know as CSOs, we also have our own terms for things, and from any side of society, when you start to be an expert in something, there's a level of forgetting that there's a potential for us to forget that other people don't know even the baseline of what we expect them to know. And I think that's a really critical thing. So when we're starting to deal with technologist projects and how to work with techies, I think it's always important to try and understand where you're coming from and what you need out of this, and then to make sure that you get buy-in in a written form in the meeting or whenever you're dealing with this person. I think there are also something that I did a bit of crowdsourcing of ideas for this, and something that's a very big misconception about techies is that they can do everything that has to do with a computer. Personally, myself, I identify more as a data scientist or someone that's more interested in data. I can build a website and I can do a bunch of other things, but I certainly wouldn't call myself an expert in these things. And we sometimes think that a techie can do anything, and I think that's always important to remember that they're humans, they have defined skill sets, they have often 1 or 2 programming languages that they know very well, and those programming languages will have quite a lot of impact on what they're able to do. If they are a digital agency, they might have specialized in certain things. They might not be able to use all the social media sites and platforms, but they might only know it very well from a commercial sense and really not understand the critical differences, or from a public sense, not understand the critical differences that exist between those and from a community-based organization. So I think it's just very important as an idea to just get these 2 things across. It's to know what we want and what we need to see out of projects, and also to know what the parameters and boundaries are and what is possible for them to do. I've included a link to it's literally called the manual on how to work with, I think, technology volunteers for NPOs. It's quite in depth, and I think it would be quite useful reading. And then also just hug a techie today. I like that because although they might seem intimidating, and now to put my sort of techie hat on, we are often quite maybe shy people, maybe introverted people, and it's good to just talk to us. And I think that that's often the thing, is that we think, or we feel intimidated, or we feel that we're saying the wrong words, or we're feeling that we're sounding dumb. And I think as a CSO or CBO, and I think a technologist feels the same thing when they're trying to understand a problem. And so you'll start to talk to them about early childhood development and the outer areas in Gauteng, and they might not even know what early childhood development is, or that it's critical. And so I think just trying to empathize with each other is a really useful thing to be able to do, and help to bring project success in working with techies. So I think it's also where can I find help? Where can I find techies? This is a critical thing for CBOs and CSOs at the moment. I think the first thing is to possibly join a community. I'm speaking maybe from my own perspective here, but as Open Data Durban, as part of the civic technology movement, as Code for South Africa, we are attempting to build communities that are more multifaceted and that offer the ability, or the framework, or the events for techies and non-techies, especially techies and CSOs or CBOs, to collaborate and to join and to understand. Something that's really critical is that as an MPO or CSO or CBO, you are working naturally at the coalface, like in the need. And I think that's really important, that we start to build a connection between people who can maybe build a technical solution like a techie, but also someone who understands intrinsically the problem and the user, which is really more a CSO than anyone else, especially in our fields. There are technology MPOs that exist even in South Africa, mine being one of them, as well as Code for South Africa, as well as Geek Culture in Pretoria, and these will often have some level of ability to either help or to chat. Obviously, there's the normal commercial channels of finding technology firms, but these can be very expensive, as we know. There's also universities and research institutes. I've done a lot of I've actually been at quite a number of events at the Durban University of Technology recently, and there are a lot of young, keen developers and technologists looking for some problem to sink their skills into. And I think like building relationships and with places like that could be a critical source of really useful help and volunteers. So I mentioned that we run data quests, and there are hackathons that happen across the country. A hackathon is just a place where techies gather to write code and try to code together something. And the reason why hackathons don't work is because they're solution focused. And so they might build some flashy app or they might just be a breeding ground for big tech firms to hire. But why we phrase what our hackathons as data quests is we like to have a problem that we're trying to solve. We like to have users that we're trying to meet, whose needs we're trying to meet. And I think where CBOs or CSOs could really disrupt or change hackathons for the good would be to go to them and sit down with a team of young technologists or however it works and explain the problem and see if they can build some sort of solution to meet that need. Also, there are a lot of knowledge share events that are starting to happen around the country, often called meetups, and if you follow that link, it will take you to meetup.com, which has the meetups and knowledge share evenings, a lot of the meetups and knowledge share evenings that are happening in your community or near you. I've put a link to our meetup there. There's the digital swarm meetup that happens. These are just two examples that I know of, and, because they happen at the Green Door co-working space where I'm based. But being a part of these knowledge shares events and conferences help firstly us understand what's possible, because they will often be talking about a project that worked somewhere or a piece of technology that's been built. So if you can bear going through the boredom of listening to someone talk about his technology, then it's worth going. But it's also worth making relationships with people and sharing a drink or some food with someone who might have some technical knowledge in programming or something, and just to frame problems and see if there's any interesting solutions that come up. There are also public initiatives. I know eThekwini as a city has started up with an ICT and e-forum. I think it would be really interesting to see how that forum starts to interact with the CBO or the MPO or the civil society sector. I'm certainly very interested in, as a part of that forum, seeing if we can collaborate and where we can offer. I mean, it should be useful for something. And I think that's a huge use it could be aimed towards. And then there's also, as I mentioned, civic technology groups. And we talked about civic technology yesterday, but it's really just technology that is aimed at bringing about civic good, evidence-based planning, evidence-based change, informed decision-making. And so, as I mentioned, Code for South Africa are leading that drive in the country. There's Open Data Durban is a city-facing civic technology lab. We're really interested in understanding how we can bring technology to problems and really help expand impact and mission. So I think being aware, and these aren't the only two, but they're just some examples. And yeah, I think that is the basic overrun of how I think there's some opportunities for working with techies about some of the ways and terminologies and frameworks and projects we can work with. I see, I'm going to do this anyway because I want to just show you what it looks like. So thank you. These are all my details. I'll come back to them now. But I thought just very quickly, I won't have time to do all of the examples that I liked or would have liked. But I thought that with you very quickly now, we could make a WordPress site. And so we can, this is something I came up with very quickly. Literally just before this, I went onto WordPress.com. Maybe we can actually do it like this, so that it doesn't log me into my old site. And this is what happens when you type WordPress.com into an internet browser. It comes up with this, and there's a big button that says Create Website. And so we can create a website. And so this is what those themes I was talking about look at. So you can always switch them, but like let's just say we look through and we like the look of this theme. What we want to do is enter a domain. So remember, the domain is just the address on the internet that it will look like. So we can call it some example and see what comes back. So we're going to go some example 2016. So we're going to select that, and that will be our domain. We're going to select a free plan. I'm going to put in my email address, and I'm going to choose a password. So that's not available. And make sure the password is working. and then I'm going to create my account, and then WordPress is going to go and set up my website. And so now we can see our website. We can see here is our domain name. This is our website. Obviously there's no content on it yet, but you can see that our theme has been loaded, which was that Hemingway theme. And over here you can say themes to customize. We can write blog posts, so we can add a blog post, which we say blog post, some copy, and then we publish this draft, and then we can view the post on our website, and then we can see there's our blog post with some copy. Now there's naturally way more that can be done, but in this I think it has been 3 minutes. We have got, and if you go to some example 2016.wordpress.com, you'll see our website. And so just to say that there is so much more you can learn with this, but being able to get a website up very quick and easy is there. There is a lot of customization that is able to be done in a framework or platform like WordPress.com, and so just wanted to take you through that. Otherwise, yeah, just to get to the end. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to hand over to Wendell or Nick now.
Oh, thanks, Richard. That was really interesting. I learned a lot along the way as well. One of the things that struck me that was so interesting was that we as a civil society also need to be prepared when we go and start talking to techies as well. So I like that you were clear also about people thinking about what their voice is and what they're wanting to say and who they're wanting to talk to, because I'm sure it would make it much easier in terms of how techies and CSOs talk to each other if there's a very clear vision that people come with in terms of how they see their communications happening. So I thought that was really interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it's really important to remember when you're talking to someone who's doing a service for you, that you're in the driving seat. And I think we often feel like a bit out of depth or wary or frustrated by working with technologists, and often they'll throw a bunch of words up that we don't understand or often hide behind technical speak. But it's just really important to say, like, this is your mission and your drive, and so you get to decide what it is.
Yes, I really like that. I liked on one of your first slides you said to be annoying and to ask for what you need, which I thought was really cute. But one of the other things that struck me about your presentation, Richard, which was really helpful as well, that there's a lot of online resources. So I know we don't all have necessarily unlimited data, but I think you pointed out some really interesting places to go for good resources that are online, instead of spending hours trying to find the right places to go to find courses and online information. So thanks, that was really helpful.
Great, I'm glad you found that useful. I think, and also just to say, when you're doing something like a WordPress.com site, it is very data light, relatively, depending on how you're using it. When you're going to, and if you're looking at something which is teaching you through video, naturally that will be mobile data heavy. So just to be aware of where there is text-based, or the guides or resources are more web pages without video, that's going to be something that's going to be very easy to access or very data light. And then when there's something that's teaching you through a video, it's a bit heavier.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm going to go and have a look at some of your resources as well, because I'm sure I need to brush up on a few things too.
Fantastic.
I don't know if there's any other questions from people attending or from the Oxfam staff that are also online. Well, hold on. It looks like there's a little question mark coming through. Nope. Okay. Well, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more, Richard, or if you want to tell us a little bit about what the webinar tomorrow might hold for us.
Sure. So just firstly to say thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited by being able to provide some guidance in this area, and what we're building with Open Data Durban as part of the civic technology movement really speaks to trying to be able to transfer technology into the hands of people that can do good. And so I think this has been really amazing to have this webinar series, and I think that I'm excited to see what comes from it. I think that talking to tomorrow, so the first day we spoke a lot about what different data tools and ideas you can use in your organizations, and today we spoke a lot about more of the web and digital agency and the sort of engagement with technologists. Tomorrow what we're going to talk about is some examples more of the WASI maps where civic technologists have worked with CEOs or CSOs to broaden or heighten or deepen their impact. And so some great examples to see, maybe spark some ideas about what we could do in our own organizations. And then also to just speak about some of the programs and access to resources and even potentially funded projects that we can channel as Open Data Durban and offer to Oxfam partners. And one of them certainly can be my time. And so I just wanted to say these contact details have been on the screen now for quite a lot of time. Please, anyone who's watching this webinar, please feel free to use them and to get in touch with us and see what we can do. As we mentioned yesterday, often a lot of our time and resources are able to be funded by other sources, and so we can be a resource to CBOs. And so we look forward to engaging with you.
Thanks, that's really helpful. Thanks, Richard. And yes, and sometimes it is just having that somebody to phone up and say, you know, how do I do this? Where do I start? How do I move it forward? Which I think is really helpful to have somebody like you to guide us through when we're not sure. So it's a really helpful resource. And then I think also, I don't know if many people have joined Meetup, but I found it really helpful as well to find people in your area that are working on different topics, and it could be your hobbies, or it could be work stuff, or it could be you know, areas you're wanting to learn about. So I'd also encourage people to go onto Meetup and see if there's people in your area that are hosting interesting forums or communities, and then if they're not, to possibly set up one yourself and to see, you know, see if there are other people in your area that are interested in coming together to bring about change, or to get together to work on something. So I think Meetup's a great suggestion, and somewhere I think that's helpful for us to use as a resource that's quite easy to access.
Yeah, agreed. I think from my experience of starting Open Data Durban, Meetup has been responsible a lot for building our community. I would also just echo what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's nice, you know, it's interesting because you know, you often don't think there are already groups out there that might have the same interest as you, but generally there are some. So it's quite an interesting facilitator.
Absolutely. When I started Open Data Durban, it started as a meetup to gauge interest, and I expected 3 people to come, and 17 came, and since then it's sort of just gone from bigger and bigger. So
yeah, so it shows what you can do, hey?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Richard. I think it's been really informative. And just to remind anybody that's listening, the previous webinar series on social media is also up on the blog. This current series will also all be loaded up, I'm sure, by the end of the week. And then Richard's put through a lot of lovely links to different information sources and to different examples, which I think is also really helpful. So yes, I'm not sure if there's anything else from anybody listening in.
No questions have come through.
Okay, thanks, Nicholas. Okay, well then we will chat and see you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock on our Friday afternoon slot. And else I will send out the link with the blog and the upload on our YouTube channel. So thanks very much, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Cheers, cheers. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Inga. Bye.